Genesis chapter 26, we see Isaac navigate the difficulties of a famine. Through this story, we'll get insights into the generational impacts of sinfulness and holiness. We'll get some insights into forgiveness as well. But the main focus of this passage is God's great provision. I hope this study is as beneficial for you as it has been for me. Let's get started in Genesis chapter 26, verse 1. Now there was a famine in the land, besides the former famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Gerar, to Abimelech, king of the Philistines. And the Lord appeared to him, and said, Do not go down to Egypt. Dwell in the land of which I shall tell you. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you, and will bless you. For to you and to your offspring I will give all these lands, and I will establish the oath that I swore to Abraham your father. I will multiply your offspring as the stars of the heaven, and will give your offspring all these lands, and in your offspring all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. Let's stop right here. Lots to unpack in this first section. So contextually, we see that a famine is happening. It's a separate famine than back in the days of Abraham. And uh, Isaac, similar to Abraham, is tempted to flee the promised land of Canaan and go into Egypt to seek reprieve in this difficult time. And as he's doing this, he's begun that journey. He's still in Canaan, he's in the land of Gerar. God stops him and says, Do not abandon me. Do not abandon this promised land. He says, Stay here, be faithful to me, and I will be faithful to you. I will be faithful to the covenant that I gave your father. So, what are we seeing here? God does not change. His promises do not change. We can be confident that He will provide for us as He has provided for all those that have come before us. We can be promised. We can be sure that what He says, He will do. Take faith in this great God. Know the promises that He has made you and live like they are reality, because they are, or at least they will be soon. Trust our great God. He is our provider. Another thing to notice here, this covenant is passed down from Abraham to Isaac, almost verbatim. And what we're seeing here, God is establishing, yes, my covenant did not change. The entire story of the Bible is the story of Christ. From beginning to end, the story has been a promised Son is coming, one who will set you free from bondage to sin and to death. And through Him, you will be made righteous. It's the story of the Old Testament. It's the story of the New Testament. It's all about Christ. And that might seem to be conflicting with what is said about Abraham here. It says that Abraham obeyed my voice, kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. But we know, we saw in the chapters before, that Abraham sinned against God, actually in the exact same way that we're about to see Isaac sin. So how can God say that He kept His commandments? It's not because of him. The commandments were not kept in Abraham. Abraham is counted as righteousness because of his faith. And what is his faith in? The one to come, Jesus Christ, the offspring through whom all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. No one has ever been saved apart from Jesus Christ. While the people in the Old Testament did not know His name, did not know the story of His life, they were still trusting in the one to come who would take away the sins of the world. And we are saved in the exact same way, by placing our faith in this promised Son, Jesus Christ, by trusting in His perfect life, by trusting in His sacrificial death, by trusting in His resurrection from the dead, proving He was exactly who He said He was, that He really did bear the weight of all of our sins, the fullness of God's wrath. And all that is required is faith in Him, belief in what He has done. What a great message that is. And it's the message of the entire Bible. Okay, let's continue. Let's see Isaac fall into the same sin that his father did. So Isaac settled in Gerar. When the men of the place asked him about his wife, he said, She's my sister. For he feared to say, my wife, thinking, lest men of this place take me and kill me because of Rebekah, because she was attractive in appearance. When he had been there a long time, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out of a window and saw Isaac laughing with his wife, Rebekah. So Abimelech called Isaac and said, behold, she is your wife. How then could you say she is my sister? Isaac said to him, because I thought, lest I die because of her. Abimelech said, what is this that you have done to us? One of the people might have easily lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us. So Abimelech warned all the people, saying, whoever touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. Let's stop right here. So we see Isaac commit virtually the exact same sin that Abraham committed just a few chapters before. And this sin is almost even worse. At least in Abraham's case, he was able to pull out the excuse, yeah, she's my half sister, so I didn't technically lie. No, Isaac's just fully lying here. He is not related to her. This is not his sister. So we see the same sin committed by two consecutive generations. We see that man is naturally fallen. He will always fall into sin. And the only time he is not in sin, it's because God has given him grace to keep him from sin. We see Isaac may have learned this type of sinful behavior, this sinful thought process from his father, Abraham. It is highly important that all of us are strong spiritual examples so that we do not teach those who turn to us for guidance in a wrong way. We must be good examples of Christ and of Christian living so that we can lead those around us, especially if we are in positions of codified leadership, like fathers over homes, pastors over churches, any spiritual leadership position of that nature. It is highly important that we live and model the message that we are proclaiming. Another thing I want to point out here, it says that Isaac and Rebekah continued in this way for a long time. So this is a lie that Isaac was perpetuating, that he was keeping up. And we can see that with this sustained lying, Isaac may have come to trust in himself, his own ability to deceive for protection rather than God for protection. It seems Isaac and Rebekah are not torn apart. Isaac is not killed, anything of that nature. And he can credit himself for that because of his creative, crafty lying. Whereas in reality, it's God keeping him safe. And Abraham's or Isaac's sin completely blinds him from being able to recognize that. We must never attribute the work of God to ourselves. We are fully dependent on God in all things. Nothing comes apart from his guiding hand. And we'll see that emphasized and clarified further on in this chapter. One last note I want to make on this section. Isaac again puts himself in a position where these fallen men can rightly judge him. He invalidates his witness of Christ for quite an extended period of time because of this prolonged sinfulness. Let us not live in sin, if only for the sake of our witness, so that we can go and share the message of the gospel with those around us, so we can be effective tools for God to use to bring those to Christ. All right, now let's continue. And Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold. The Lord blessed him, and the man became rich and gained more and more until he became very wealthy. He had possession of flocks and herds and many servants, so that the Philistines envied him. Now the Philistines had stopped and filled with earth all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father. And Abimelech said to Isaac, go away from us, for you are much mightier than we. Let's stop right here. Even after Isaac's sin, God is generous in blessing him. Isaac has been forgiven, and God has lavished blessing upon him. How generous our God is to, even in our constant and grievous sin, lavish blessing upon us. And that is not to say that God will always act in this way. God has every right and is even likely to withdraw his blessing when we are living in sin. And we should not simply avoid sin for the sake of our earthly temporal blessing. We should avoid sin because we love the God who has saved us from it. But it is appropriate and valuable to know that even in our sinfulness, God is regularly gracious and bountiful in blessing. Another thing I want to note in this section, Abraham is dead, and the Philistines, these fallen people of the earth, fill the wells that he created in his life. His earthly legacy is immediately tarnished. It is not lasting. The things of this earth do not last. Do not store up treasures in this earth. They will not last. The only thing of substance, the only thing of worth is that in the spiritual realm. Store up treasures in heaven. Work for the Lord, because this life is fleeting and you will leave nothing of significance or importance behind. The purpose of our lives is to glorify God, to lay up those treasures in heaven. We are his servants on this earth, preparing for the next. Okay, let's continue. So Isaac departed from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar and settled there. And Isaac dug again the wells of water that had been dug in the days of Abraham his father, which the Philistines had stopped after the death of Abraham. And he gave them the names that his father had given them. But when Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found there a well of spring water, the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdmen, saying, "The water is ours." So he called the name of the well Esek, because they contended with him. Then they dug another well, and they quarreled over that also, and he called its name Sitnah. And he moved from there again and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he called its name Rehoboth, saying, "For now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land." Okay, so we're seeing this contention between Isaac and the fallen men around him. That is always the experience of the Christian. This world is in opposition to us. We cannot expect peace or happiness with them. They are opposed to who we are. Our identity is Christ. They're opposed to Christ. They're opposed to us. We can't expect peace. We must be prepared to defend ourselves. I'm not saying violent defense. I'm saying be ready to defend your faith because they will attack it. The world will be opposed to you. Be ready to stand guard and defend your identity, which is Christ. We're also going to look at these wells as images of spiritual prosperity or things of spiritual value here in a minute. So have that thought beginning to form in your mind. All right, let's continue. From there he went up to Beersheba, and the Lord appeared to him the same night, and said, "I am the God of Abraham your father. Fear not, for I am with you, and will bless you and multiply your offspring, for my servant Abraham's sake." So he built an altar there, and called upon the name of the Lord, and pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants dug a well. So we see that Isaac is having these contentions with the fallen world around him, and God comes to comfort him. The word of the Lord brings him comfort, and our experience is the exact same way. We will battle with this fallen world. Again, they're opposed to our identity, which is Christ. But the word of the Lord equips us and comforts us in those battles. So let's be prepared to wield the weapon and the shield of the word effectively. Study this word, know it intimately and deeply. Okay, let's continue. When Abimelech went to him from Gerar with Ahuzzath his adviser and Phicol the commander of his army, Isaac said to them, "Why have you come to me, seeing that you hate me and have sent me away from you?" They said, "We see plainly that the Lord has been with you." So we said, "Let there be a sworn pact between us, between you and us. Let us make a covenant with you, that you will do us no harm, just as we have not touched you, and have done to you nothing but good, and have sent you away in peace. You are now the blessed of the Lord." So he made them a feast, and they ate and drank. In the morning They rose early and exchanged oaths, and Isaac sent them on their way, and they departed from him in peace. That same day Isaac's servants came and told him about the well that they had dug, and said to him, "We have found water." He called it Shebath. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba to this day. Or let's stop here. So Abimelech, Ahuzath, and Phicol come to Isaac and say, "Hey, we've done you no wrong. We see that you're blessed. We want to get on your good side." But they're straight up lying. We just read that they had contention after contention after contention with Isaac over these wells. Maybe not them directly, but their people. So for them to say, "We sent you out in peace," is simply not true. But just as Isaac was forgiven for his sin against them and was blessed afterward by God, he now forgives them for their transgressions against him and then blesses them with a feast and with these promises that they are seeking. That is a model for every Christian. We have been forgiven a great deal, an astronomical amount. The sins that we have committed against God that have been covered by the blood of Christ are far greater than any offense we will ever receive on this earth. We must be exceptionally quick and ready to forgive those that seek forgiveness and reconciliation, because we have no right to deny it. We've been blessed beyond belief by our great God. Also notice, contention is a natural occurrence between a Christian man and the fallen men of this world. But when the opportunity for peace arises, we ought to take it. We ought to seek to be connected in as peaceful a relationship as possible with those in this fallen world. Those peaceful relations aid our ability to present the gospel to these people. We're not meant to be monks isolating ourselves. It's good and appropriate to interact with the fallen world. But our goal in all of those interactions should be to point them to their greatest need, which is salvation through Jesus Christ. All right, now let's turn our attention to the wells in this text. They're very recurrent, they come up a lot, and they're absolutely essential to living in this time period. So it makes sense they'd come up a lot, but I think there's spiritual significance to them as well. We see that at first, Isaac is digging up the same wells that Abraham, his father, had dug in years past. I think the spiritual corollary here is the saints that have walked before us have clarified Christianity in such a way that we can dig through their work and receive spiritual benefit from it. So, in the same way that Isaac had to clear these wells to access the water that Abraham once accessed, we dig through the work, the understandings of the saints that have walked before us to have a greater understanding of our God. And we do the same thing just as Isaac does. Isaac then goes and digs wells of his own. He finds his own understanding of God. And we do the exact same. We dig wells that future generations can then benefit from. There's a generational component to both our sinfulness, like we saw in Isaac committing the same sin as Abraham by falsely presenting his wife as his sister. But there's also a generational aspect to holiness. We see that the spiritual efforts of each generation benefit the subsequent generations. Let's seek to leave a wealth of spiritual knowledge to those that come after us and acknowledge the great wealth that lies behind us. There is so much for us to glean, to learn from those that have walked before us. God has given us all the tools that we need to be exceptionally strong in the faith. Failure to do so is shameful. Of those who have been given much, much will be expected. Live up to your expectations. Okay, now we have a few final verses essentially just set up for the next chapter, which is going to be a bit of a doozy. But let's read these to close out the passage. When Esau was 40 years old, he took Judith, the daughter of Berai the Hittite, to be his wife, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and they made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. So we see that Esau breaks this tradition established by Abraham of marrying within their people. What we're seeing here is Esau's disregard for anything but the temporal. He doesn't care about his ancestors and the traditions that started. He doesn't care about the spiritual realm, as we saw with him selling his birthright so cheaply to Jacob. All he cares about is the here and the now. He sees these women, disregards everything, and makes them his wives. But this is another reminder not to be caught up in the things of this earth. We are not built for this earth. We're built for the next. We're built for the life to come. Keep that in mind as you're navigating the difficult struggle of the Christian life. I hope this study is beneficial for you as it has been for me. This focus on God's provision is so, so valuable. I find it so assuring to know that I am not reliant on myself, because I know that if I was, I would have absolutely nothing. God is such a great provider. We can take such rest in his providing, guiding hand. God bless you all. Goodbye.